Comrade Julian, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Happy
Yes,
to be on the
man.
platform.
Yeah, man, welcome. I don't know if this is your first time on TikTok, but it is.
On this, yes, in this way, yes.
Okay, excellent. I'm happy that I am the one to, so to speak, broke your ducks, right? All right. So, viewers, Comrade Julian Robinson, as you know, is the opposition spokesperson on finance and also the MP of Southeast St. Andrew. So, comrade, you know, it's so ironic that right before we started here, I actually saw something on the news. Nationwide posted a story about the finance minister claiming that there is danger raising the income tax threshold too high. A little bit before I came on live. You saw the story?
I didn't see, I think what it was, there was a forum put on by Capri on Thursday, I think it may have been, with a discussion with Damian King. And I think Damian King and Capri have been recommending moving it to 2.5. And I think the minister indicated that they didn't want to go so far. So I think his point was few people, the higher you go, there are fewer people who would benefit. I think that was the answer he gave. The reason Capri had recommended it is that they are trying to get people back to the same purchasing power that they would have had in 2016 when we moved to 1.5. So they have worked out what inflation has been from 2016 to now. So to put you back in the same position you were in 2016, you would need to raise the threshold to 2.5. So that is the caveat. And our party leader has indicated that we want to go further. And just to say what we are recommending, we plan to implement it over in a 3-phase approach, meaning we wouldn't attempt to move to 3 million in one go, because that would be a very large, the revenue give up would be significant. So we would implement it over 3 years in a phase basis to get to the 3 million.
Comrade Julian, they're saying you're a little bit low. Is there any way you can turn up the volume on your device?
Let me turn up my volume. Yeah, sorry.
All right, thank
Is
you.
that better? And I'll move a little closer to the computer. Yeah.
Comrades, let me know if he's sounding any better.
Is that any better now?
You sound better to me. Okay, yes, they're saying that you sound better. All right, this whole thing surprises and amuses me, because initially when they started this increase in the threshold, we were the ones who were cautioning them, and they were very bold about it. As a matter of fact, they went as far as to say that they were going to get it eventually to about 3 million. Isn't that right?
Well, all right. I think we need to go back. When they did it, what they said at the time is that they could do it without imposing any new taxes. And that is why, so when this was on the eve of the 2016 election, and we said it's not possible to do it without imposing new taxes. And we were correct. The then government, the JP government, to implement the 1.5, they imposed $32 billion of taxes. Most of those taxes were what we call indirect taxes. So they were consumption taxes. So you don't necessarily see it upfront, but when you go to the supermarket, you're paying more. So to implement the 1.5, they imposed $32 billion worth of new taxes, when their campaign promise was they would do it without any new taxes, which is why we cautioned them against that. And we said it wasn't possible to do it without new taxes.
But they're sticking to this no new taxes thing, which is really a 3-card trick, because as you say, what they've done is increase the consumption taxes. And as we have seen with the SCT on fuel, that basically drives up inflation everywhere.
So, so no new taxes means that they have not imposed new tax measures. So let me make the distinction. So there have been no new tax measures. However, as the price of certain items go up, you pay more taxes. So for example, if you take fuel, there's what they call an ad valorem tax. And the higher the cost of fuel goes, the higher the ad valorem tax. So even though it's not a new tax measure, you pay more. Similarly, generally with the cost of goods, inflation contributes to increase in tax revenues because as the cost of goods and services go up, taxes are a percentage of that. So if it is 15% and the cost of whatever, let's say a bag goes up, then you pay more in GCT. So, just to be clear, no new tax measures is different from not collecting new taxes. And what we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years is that our tax revenues have been growing significantly. Some of it, yes, it's general economic growth, but I would say inflation has also played a role in that. So more and more of the population, they're paying more taxes based on the price of goods and services, even though no new tax measures have been implemented.
So you would say then that this ad valorem tax now basically puts inflation out of control, which is why they've not been able to stay within their targets.
Well, all right. Well, the reason I would say they haven't been able to stay within their targets, I would say the majority of our inflation in Jamaica is what I would call imported inflation. So let's take the price of oil. We import oil. We produce very little in terms of renewable energies, which I want to get to at some point in the conversation. But you need oil for electricity, you need it for transportation. Now, we have no control over the price of oil. So for example, the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, those things impact the price of oil. Now, when the price of oil goes up, it has a knock-on effect on everything else. Because if electricity goes up, if you are, let's say, a producer of bread, as an example, if electricity go up, you have to increase the cost of the bread that you sell to people. If the cost of fuel goes up and you are delivering goods, then your costs have gone up. You have to pass it on. So a significant part of the inflation, I would say, is driven by external factors. But there's no question that the way our tax system is set up, particularly for gas, and particularly it's important to understand the ad valorem. The ad valorem, there was a hedge tax put in, primarily to put in a hedge, which is like an insurance. So depending on how high the price of oil goes, that would chip in, which would help to reduce the price to the end user. That tax has remained, but the government has not put in a hedge. So while you're paying more in taxes as you consume gas at the pump, etc., you are not getting the benefit of what that hedge would be. Tell me if you're following me or not.
I am following you. I'm following you, and the listeners are following you as well. I am following you. Right. So basically, he has put himself in a conundrum. Basically, that's what I understand from all you're saying. He's basically put himself in a conundrum now because of the taxes causing increase in everything, and now he can't control inflation because, as you said, the hedge was to reduce the cost of fuel to us. So because there is no hedge, he can't control the cost of the fuel, therefore he can't control inflation because the cost of fuel drives up inflation, right?
It does, but let me again. So inflation is really the purview. Controlling inflation is primarily the purview of the Bank of Jamaica. And what the Bank of Jamaica has been doing is to use interest rates as their main tool to bring inflation down, which is really what most central banks across the world have been doing. Now, the theory behind it is that you increase interest rates So let's say you are a typical consumer. It encourages you to save money because rates at the bank would go up. So let's say instead of buying that new car that you are going to buy, you put the money in the bank, you reduce your demand for the car. If you reduce your demand for the car dealer would be spending less foreign exchange to import the car, and then that reduces the demand, and that brings the general price of goods and services down. That's the theory, right? In Jamaica, it doesn't quite work that way because the inflation we have experienced, unlike developed countries like the US, is you have two types of inflation. You have demand pull and you have cost push. So demand pull would be, let's say somebody has come out with a new iPhone, and I'll just use an example. And the price of the iPhone, the person came to you and said, I'm going to sell you the iPhone for $100. But then 10 people come to him and say, I want to buy the same iPhone. So the demand for the iPhone has gone up. So the man selling the iPhone said, no, I'm not going to sell it for $100. I'm going to sell it for $150. That is what you call demand pull inflation, where there is a lot of demand for the price of goods, and the price goes up. That's not the problem we have in Jamaica. We have cost push inflation because most of what we consume, a significant part of what we consume, is imported. Fuel is a big part of the inflation basket. But if you look, for example, at any of the goods you go to the supermarket to buy, there's a heavy imported in component, even if it is manufactured here in Jamaica. So we have been suffering more from cost push inflation, which I don't necessarily believe raising interest rates solve that problem. So, part of where we are right now, in my view, where you're seeing a fall off in revenues and where the revenue intake for the last financial year was down, in my view, is attributed to the fact that interest rates are having a negative impact on the bottom line of companies. So again, if you take an example, your company A, you took out a loan from the bank 5 years ago. The interest rate at the time may have been 3 or 4%. It has moved 8% in the last 12 to 18 months. Now, some of that cost that you have absorbed, you can pass on to your end customer. Some of it you can't. And I believe part of the reason why those companies have reported lower profits and as such lower taxes is that the impact of the increase in interest rates is having a negative impact on general activity and profits for many of the companies.
But with me? Yes, I'm with you, because this is exactly what Keith Duncan from EPOC said. However,
yes, absolutely.
But Nigel Clark is saying that nothing don't go so is because the businesses they've not collected all the taxes from the businesses, and this is what now 6-7 weeks after the tax period has closed. So really, does he expect to collect much more to make up back for that shortfall?
I mean, my own view is, even if that is a partial explanation, I don't think it can be a full explanation. Because the reality is that the majority of the companies, they file and they pay by March 31st, because if you don't pay, you're penalized. I mean, once you have passed the deadline, THA imposes a penalty on you. So the majority of them file and pay. So even if some haven't paid, I don't think that can account for the 22 billion in the reduction in revenues that have happened. I think there are other more fundamental reasons. And to me, as Keith explained, and he would know, he runs a financial services company, the impact of increased interest rates. The BOJ moved interest rates from 0.5% to 7% in 18 months. So banks, as a result, would then increase the interest rates that they charge to people who want to buy a car or mortgages or businesses that borrow money. And again, you can only pass on so much of that cost to the end user. Some of it you have to absorb, and if you have to absorb it, that means your profits are going to be lower. And that's why I believe what you're seeing is a cause for concern, because I don't think next month, miraculously, we're going to see our revenues jumping back up. No, we're going to see more pressures on companies, and they're going to have to absorb some more of those costs, which means that is less tax revenues for the government.
All right, so now that we're talking about the tax revenue issue now, I wanted to explain to the listeners. A lot of people have been asking me what are the implications of these revenue shortfalls, because I was explaining to them last night that whereas when you're with the IMF test, the IMF test is like an international exam. This revenue shortfall thing is like a local exam, like the PEP. You have to pass this because you have to know where the money come from, because as Keith Duncan said, basically, or somebody sent me something, basically there are implications from this. So I want you to explain to the listeners now, what are the implications for the revenue shortfall?
So the best way, just use a personal example, use your own example as an individual. So you may, let's say you work at a company and you earn $1 million, and then your side business gives you another 2 million. So your income is, you project to earn $3 million. Based on what you project to earn, you plan your expenditure. You have to buy food, you pay your bills, you may want to take a trip with your family, whatever, pay your school fees, whatever. You then find out that the side business, instead of bringing in the 2 million, is only bringing in 1.5 million this year, because you may have lost a customer or your people are not paying you or whatever. It therefore means that you had planned to spend the 3 million based on what you projected to bring in, but you only have brought in 2.5. Now you have two options as an individual. You could go and borrow money at the bank to spend to make up for the deficit. And in the case of the government could impose new taxes to make up for the deficit. But they have said so far they don't plan to do that. So the obvious implication, if your revenues are down, is that you have to look to cut your expenditures, because your revenues need to be in line with your expenditures. So given that you had a shortfall of 22 billion, unless by some miraculous means you make it up, let's say in the next month or two, you're going to now have to adjust your expenditures, which means there are programs you have to look at. Now, Keith Duncan said they may have to look at Spark, or they may have to look at this reverse income tax. I don't know which programs they'll have to look at, but you will have to cut programs to suit the revenues that you're bringing in. It's as simple as that. If you don't do that, then you have to raise taxes, and they said they don't plan to raise taxes. And that is what Keith has said. That's what, and I mean, that's just the normal rational thing that an individual would have to do, and it's the same thing that a government would have to do.
And hence the conundrum they found themselves in. Now, explain the Spark program that's the new program that they came up with to allocate resources to fixing road and infrastructure.
Roads and stuff, yeah. So, I mean, my own view, just me personally, I don't think Spark is going to be cut, because frankly, of all the other expenditures, I think, we have an election due next year, September, and I think they're going to do everything to ring fence and protect Spark, because, Spark is putting money on the ground. They have 49 MPs. They're going to want to, spend money on roadworks. So my own view is that they probably will have to look at other expenditures that they will have to cut. But so Spark is designed for MPs, councillors to undertake roadworks in your constituency, to deal with many of the interior roads, which tend to be neglected, and which, frankly, the normal resources you have through our constituency development fund simply can't address it. So we don't have an issue with, and I don't think any MP or council would tell you they have an issue with the allocations for Spark, no, because our own constituents have been crying out for improvements in their roads. But at some point, as I said, whether it is Spark or something else, they will have to make adjustments if the revenues are not there.
A listener is saying that the Spark program is basically Jeep reinvented.
I agree. I mean, they call it something else, but that's in essence what it is. I mean, at the time, we had allocated, I believe the figure in 2012 was about 40 million per constituency. And there was a secretariat, you would identify the projects, mainly roads, sidewalks, etc., drains, and then the allocation was done. In essence, it's the same kind of thing, yeah, correct, but just a different name.
All right. All right, Comrade Julian, I want you to take me back a couple of weeks now to when all parliamentarians were off on their recess and you all suddenly were called back. Explain to me what exactly happened, why parliamentarians had to be called back to look at the budget again, which was supposed to have been complete, signed, sealed, delivered. What happened?
So an error was made by the Ministry of Finance in the, well, not just publication, in terms of what was published and what was passed by Parliament, meaning they made an error which meant they left out certain things. Now, I've asked the question, not so much how the error was made, because errors can be made, but more so how the error wasn't detected is really the question. And because, you know, the budget process it's a very detailed process. You have the technocrats at the ministry who prepare it, the documents come to the parliament, you know, it goes through a number of different levels. But for whatever reason, the error was not detected at all. So we went through an entire budget exercise, we passed the budget, everything. Unknown to most of us, we then got a call to say, because we were going to have a break for about 3 or 4 weeks, to say that we had to come back as an emergency. Now, the reason we had to come back, if the correction wasn't made, and the budget wasn't, well, repassed, so to speak, then there are certain ministries and agencies that would not have been allocated monies to continue to carry out their functions. So, and there were about a list of 15 that were identified. Now, if they were not allocated monies, it meant that the staff in those ministries, agencies, and departments couldn't be paid. Certain bills wouldn't be paid. In cases of pension, people couldn't get them pension, etc. So the corrections were made on the Tuesday, went to the Senate, passed, and they were able to adjust it. Now, as I said, the main point for me, because I'm not going to say people can't make mistakes, is just really how throughout the entire process, nobody picked it up within the ministry and within the entire government infrastructure, how that slipped everybody. And from my recollection, is the first time that I think this has happened. I've been in Parliament 12 years, I've never seen it.
I was about to ask that.
Much longer than me have said they have never experienced this. So, you know, to me again, is the process of checks and balances, and where did that break down? Because if somebody makes an error, there should be somebody else who would pick it up before it gets into a document to be printed, published, and passed by the Parliament.
You know, I didn't even realize that it had so many implications, because I didn't know that you had actual ministries and departments that were actually totally left out of the budget. I thought it was more of a case where some people were included in the budget that weren't supposed to be included. I didn't know that there were people left out. What are some of the ministries or the statutory bodies left?
I don't have them in front of me, but that is why we had to be called back in such a hurry, because if the correction wasn't made quickly, they would have probably missed the pay cycle in April. That's why there was that emergency session on the Tuesday. So
but I think they did. I think they missed some because we have been getting complaints that some pensioners were not paid their pension in the cycle that was due right after that budget.
Well, I don't know if it may be connected to that given that the adjustments were made, there's a lag, because you then have to issue the warrants, and then the warrants go to the ministries, and then they pass it, etc. So it is possible that that could account for the delay in payments for people. But that is why there was that emergency to call us back quickly so that we could make the correction and then pass it so that those payments could go out.
All right. All right. So now I want us to move to the population census. That is a hot button topic that we need to speak about now. You say, oh dear.
That one has been but none short of a disaster. I mean, I don't know how else to categorize it, to be honest with you. I don't. I mean, it's something I've been following for a while because so from the first, I know you know a lot about it, but for your listeners, a census is done every 10 years, not an everyday exercise. And the reason a census is so important, it is a planning tool for government. So you know first how many people are in your country, you know how many men you have, how many women you have, you know how many people have access to electricity, water, internet, etc., so that you can plan and you can use data to inform policy and decisions. So that is why a census is important. So let's take just as an example. When you hear an unemployment rate of 4.2%, the figure that the population,
I was about to ask that.
Right, that we use is based on a census. Now, the last census would have been done 20, I believe, because the new one should have been done 2020, but we were in COVID and it was delayed, etc.
Comrade Julian, 1 minute. Just letting you know that I don't have much time left on the Zoom, but should it cut out, I am going to call you on your WhatsApp so that we can continue the presentation. So if it suddenly runs out at the time while you're speaking, just give me a few seconds to call you on your WhatsApp. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So you know, so a census is something that you plan for years in advance. It's not something that spring upon you overnight. So we knew the census was coming. It was delayed because of COVID and etc. So the first red flags that for me, I knew people who volunteered to be census takers, meaning they signed up, they went to the training, they did everything. And then I started getting the complaints that they weren't being called, you know, meaning they'd done everything. Them even get them tablet and everything. And then they weren't being called. So that was the first red flag. And then many of them, you know, the people who do censuses tend to be, they're teachers, they're solid professionals, right? And many of them saw it as a way of earning a little more income plus contributing to national service. So the first red flag, many people not being called. Then the next set of red flags related to, I just kept getting complaints about people who had done work and couldn't get paid. And I mean, when I say complaints, I mean literally scores of complaints. And these are people who would say, listen, we completed our enumeration district, which is what they call it. Our supervisor signed off on it to say everything is all right, and we just can't get paid. And we call with this, with that, nothing. And then it just became, the cries became louder and louder and louder, and it was almost a crescendo. And I can tell you, I don't know how people find me, but whether on social media, whether through my WhatsApp, whatever, I can give you a list of a litany of complaints, but most of them revolved around both workers and supervisors who had done their work and couldn't get paid. And so after a while, many of these people just said, we're done with this thing. And you know, census work is hard work. It's like, you know, you comrades understand what canvassing is. It's like that. You go, you knock on people's door, you're asking them always set a question, sometimes dog go and bite you, this and that. People slam door in your face. It's hard work. So you have these people going out there, trying to do the work, and they can't get paid. And many of them left in frustration because they could not get paid. Many of them have the tablets now that were issued by Statin, right? And them said them not turn over the tablet till them get paid. So the red flags in terms of the census came up long ago. Now, I would have thought that, and I don't know the internal processes, but I started getting feedback too, right, from I heard many of the experienced people who had done censuses before were not engaged, right? That the people who were marshalling the exercise were fairly inexperienced. And the way they were treating the workers, the field workers, was just disgraceful. You know, that was just the biggest complaint. And as such, I'm not surprised why we are where we are, because one, I think people just stopped working in frustration and they couldn't recruit more people to go out there because the people them get are owed money for a year or more. So why they going to go there and work and not get paid? And then for some reason, the responses from management just left a lot to be desired. You know, people felt they were being disrespected in the responses from the management, etc. So right now, I can't tell you where we are at. I know when I spoke in the budget debate, less than 1 million people have been counted. We had spent over $4 billion. I hear starting say they're doing a wrapping up now, but I hear them say they're going to use a tool to extrapolate the total population. From my understanding, in a sense, as you go and count everybody. You're really supposed to be counting everybody. It's not like a poll, right?
Exactly. Because I don't know anybody who has been polled by the census. I know nobody at all who the census take data from you.
So I don't know when we get this data, whether we can really have confidence in the data at all. So like you, I mean, there are tons of people who have not been counted. And I hear starting saying, well, we have gated communities, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the people who haven't been counted don't live in gated communities. The census takers just have not gotten to them. Have not gotten to them. And I believe the reason they haven't gotten to them is they don't have the workforce to go out and do it, because the people are not going to go out there when they're paid money, when they're owed money, sorry, and when there's no satisfactory answer to how they're owed. So while I see them saying them wrapping up, I don't know what they're going to present and how much confidence we can have in the data at all. It's been the worst run census in the history of Jamaica.
Frankly, I'm not surprised at all, because from the get-go, as I spoke to you about this some time ago, and as I said, from the get-go, I know people who have been involved in the process that have been complaining that this just doesn't make any sense. So basically, if we have incorrect data, tell me now, what are the implications for everything? I mean, even they said that we have an unemployment rate of 4.5%, which don't make no sense to me, because obviously they're using the official number of people from 10 years ago. Well, it's overdue now, so it must be more than 10 years ago, right?
Correct. So I must tell you, the implications are grave. They're grave because, remember, the census drives every statistic in the country, right? It's the official statistic. So first, I don't know what they're going to say about the size of the population, because apparently they're going to extrapolate. They're not going to count everybody. So I don't know whether it's 2.8, 3 million, 2.5. We don't know whether the population has grown, decreased, how much people migrate, whatever, dead, etc. We don't know. And I don't know what figure we're going to get that will give us confidence. But it means the economic data is also going to be questionable going forward too, because the unemployment data is based on the amount of people who live in the country, who are 14 years and over, of working age, up to 70. Can we have confidence in what they present? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And now, you know, I've been so frustrated that I asked my colleague Michael Phillips, who chairs PAAC, to call starting to PAAC, because they've been very evasive about giving real answers to the problems they have. And frankly, the answers I've gotten are more excuses without an acknowledgement about what the real problems are. And to me, I just think the whole project has been badly managed from the beginning, very badly managed. And I think the implications...
Would you suggest a redo? Would you think that we should just dump that and start from scratch?
Yeah, I think that's where we are. Because what we're doing now, as I understand, they're kind of trudging along. So they have a team out there that is, I think these now are starting staff, not contractors, who are going into certain communities and trying to complete the census. But I can tell you, I saw them in Hope Pastures for the last 2 weekends, and I know that community well, and I asked a number of people, but they seem to be doing random sampling, meaning they're not trying to go to everybody's house, because I know a number of people who they haven't gotten to. But again, I don't know what we're going to get when they say this exercise is complete. And I really don't have confidence in whatever they present as being accurate and representative of what the Jamaican populace is. I think we're going to cut off soon because this thing says less than 1. So
all right. So when it cuts off, I'm not going to start the other topic then. So probably you can just exit and let me call you on the phone, because it's going to give me a 10-minute window.
Sure.
So I'm going to call you back on the phone shortly. All right. Thanks. All right, comrade. So I'm going to call back Comrade Julian on the phone so that we can continue the conversation. It's been a very interesting conversation so far. The Zoom platform only gives 40 minutes, and I am always in my head thinking that we must finish the conversation in 40 minutes, not realizing how quickly the time goes by. So we're gonna complete the conversation via phone call. Yes, you're hearing me now. Okay. All right. Let me know, listeners, if you're hearing. Comrade Julian?
Yeah, man, I'm here.
All right, great. All right. Now, I noticed in the paper this week, this whole controversy surrounding Dwayne Vaz and the Integrity Commission. I noticed there was a meeting of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee. But what it looks like to me, I'm being quite frank, it looks very deliberate, because we've seen a letter from Comrade Vaz where they've basically certified his returns.
2019, yeah.
Right. But yet they have still reported him as being, they basically say because of some monies collected. So there's a lot of gray area, and I see both sides of the houses who are in the Integrity Commission, including yourself, calling for answers. I want you to elaborate on that for me.
Well, on this one, I'm surprised, I would say, that even at this stage there has been no explanation from the Integrity Commission on this issue. So when I saw this thing in Parliament, it would have been probably 2 or 3 Tuesdays ago, and I saw Dwayne's name. I reached out to Dwayne. I said, listen, I said this thing here, what's the story? And he said to me, he immediately sent me this letter. And I said, but this letter from the Integrity Commission dated 2021, but in essence the letter said that his 2019 declaration had been received and was in good order. So I said, okay, but if they're saying your 2019 declaration is in good order, then what is the problem? Basically what Dwayne said, he's a director of a company. During COVID, the accountant who prepares the financials had actually died, right? And so he didn't have all the data to prepare the statements for the Integrity Commission. He acknowledges that he was late. So he has said that publicly, right?
Yeah.
But he did, in fact, provide the information, even though it was late. Now, what it appears is, even though he provided the information, because it was late, there was a court issue, and he was fined, I believe, $250,000 for the late submission.
Right.
But then I think after that, he received a letter from the Integrity Commission to basically say everything was fine, in essence, right?
Right.
So having received that letter, he didn't pay the fine because the Integrity Commission sent him a letter to say everything okay. So even though he had gone to court and he was supposed to pay the fine, he didn't pay it because he had got this letter. So when it comes up now, he goes to court and he presents the letter, but the lawyers for the Integrity Commission said they didn't know about this letter, and they were actually seeing it for the first time. So to me, it is what seems to be clear to me. Dwayne filed late, but he filed.
Right.
He was fined $250,000 for filing late. He didn't pay it because he had gotten a letter which, in essence, said his return was in good order.
Right.
So I think it warrants an explanation as to, given those circumstances, and my understanding, having spoken to him a number of times, why? I don't understand. What did he breach then, beyond being late, which he has acknowledged?
All right.
And does something like this, in my view, warrant the action the Integrity Commission has taken? I don't think it does. Not really, when what people want and want to see is really going after real corruption.
The illicit
not because somebody filed something late and you acknowledge that he has filed it. Go for the people who really thief in the money, the big fish.
Does it look like a smoke screen to you, though, Comrade Julian?
I don't listen. I'm very careful about what I say about the Integrity Commission because I'm not going to discredit them. There are some people have a different agenda in terms of the Integrity Commission. I don't. Right? I believe generally they're doing good work, but I'm saying on this account they need to provide a clarification. But I'm not going to jump on the chorus of trying to discredit them at all. But
I think that's what the government wants. I think the government,
which is why I'm not joining that bandwagon. But I would say, based on what I know about Dwayne's specific case, I think they need to clarify exactly what took place. But I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of discrediting them because I think the government's agenda, knowing what is to come, right?
Exactly.
And they are
to discredit them.
Is to discredit the commission, and I'm not part of that.
I see Delroy Chuck and Edmund Bartlett doing exactly that, trying to discredit the commission.
Well, Delroy is saying, it needs to be cleared up. But the reality, they've said a number of times, is that until they finish the investigation and table the reports, then they can't say anything. And, so I know there's a lot of anxiety, but we have to wait till them finish them investigation. And their annual report, which they sent to Parliament, is due by the end of June. So they're still, we are now at the beginning of May. So they still have, pretty much May and June to complete the annual report.
Interesting. All right. I want to talk now about the Auditor General reports, yes. Particularly the TAJ report, where they spend approximately $400 million on unoccupied property. I've seen where information was requested by the press about the owners of these properties, and there was they use, what them did use again? Which excuse them use?
They use the data protection.
Protection.
I know you're asking about this, but let me shift a little, but I'm going to come back to you.
All right.
So remember, these reports would have been sent to the Parliament from January of this year.
Yes.
Now, the Constitution of the land, which is the highest law, yes. Gives the Auditor General the authority to audit any accounts of any ministry, agency, and department. And once she has completed those audits, to send them to Parliament, and the Speaker is to table them as soon as is possible. Right. Now, starting with the previous Speaker, Marissa Dalrymple-Filbert, we had this thing where they began to hold these reports.
Right.
Supposedly because of their interpretation of Section 30 of the FAA Act. Now, the Attorney, not Auditor General, provided advice to the Parliament from last year.
September.
And yes, six months ago.
Right.
Which made it very clear that in relation to the Integrity Commission reports, that them supposed to get them table them first, and then they go to the Oversight Committee. In terms of the Auditor General reports, notwithstanding what see people out there talking about ambiguity. There is no ambiguity. Again, the Constitution makes it clear that once the Auditor General done a report, send it to Parliament, it must be tabled. Now, there is one exception. Section 30 of the FAA Act, if you are doing audits, financial audits of public bodies,
right,
those audits must go to the portfolio minister first, and then after 2 months, if he has no comments, tabled. But none of the reports from the Auditor General were financial audits of public bodies. They were special investigative reports.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is there was no basis for the speaker holding them. No basis. And worse, given that the speaker had a legal opinion, which made it clear to her what she was supposed to do, she has acted in breach of the Constitution. And to me, it is just pure politics. When your local government election was on the horizon, if this information was out there before the local government election, it would have probably influenced how people would have voted.
Definitely.
So they deliberately held on to these reports for political purposes, against the advice of the Attorney General, in breach of the Constitution, and the Solicitor General, and in breach of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So make us start there in terms of how egregious that action is. Now let's get to the substantive matter.
Mm-hmm.
So the report basically said that you have two agencies who have been leased buildings from the TAJ and who they remain unoccupied even though the TAJ is spending all this money, 400 million. Now, I hear this excuse about procurement, but I must tell you, I don't buy this excuse that after so many years that you can't speed up the procurement so that you can occupy a building, but yet still you're paying these two owners. One we know because one is the Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Mary, and he has acknowledged it. The other one we don't know. But what is worse now, when the gleaner seeks the opinion, they use access to information.
Right.
The government draw for the Data Protection Act to say them can't release it. And then the person who oversees the Data Protection Act, the Information Commissioner, then says there is no provision in the Data Protection Act that prevents you from sharing the information.
What has happened since then?
The question is nothing. So who are they protecting?
So
why is this thing so top secret that, remember that this is public money.
Right.
It's not nobody private money.
Exactly.
It's the same tax from me and you pay.
This is TAJ.
Tax-paying dollars. And you are trying so hard to protect who these owners are so that there can be transparency.
Are we going to go back and try to find out who this owner is, though? Given that this person has spoken out about the Data Protection Act not being applicable, what is the next step?
Again, some of these things you may have to challenge them in court.
And they've lost a lot of court cases.
And they have lost a lot of them. The last one with the DPP, because whenever we have provided advice to the government, whether it's on legislation, whether it's on other issues, they very arrogantly dismiss it, go full speed ahead, and then you end up finding that what they have done is either in breach of the Constitution or something like that. We may have to challenge it again. There are a number of outstanding issues that remain to be challenged. Eventually, the Speaker tabled the report from the opinion from the Attorney General's department.
Yes.
Because the leader had said on the Friday before that we would go to court if she never tabled it.
Exactly.
And I believe that is what forced her to table it. And quite frankly, we may have to take this approach with some of the other things.
I agree.
Where they refuse to be transparent. I've never seen a government attempt to hide more information than this one. Instead of being transparent and breach the Constitution as many times as this government has done.
No, where NIDS is concerned, I know you had taken this government to court already where that is concerned. Yes. I see there's a push for NIDS. They've introduced a new little young pretty minister. They brought her in from the private sector, made her a senator, and push her out there to, as far as I see, make NIDS appear more palatable. No, with the changes that they have made, because really and truly I haven't been paying much attention to it, Do you think it's workable?
Yeah, man, it's workable. So let me say what it was before,
Right.
and then let me say when I took them to court and what it became after.
Yeah.
So before it was mandatory, and if you did not sign up, it would be a criminal offense.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons we took them to court. So now it is optional. So you can choose to sign up for it or you can't. And if you don't choose to, no big deal. Nobody can do enough.
Excellent.
Second thing is the amount of data. So now it is optional. So you can choose to sign up for it or you can't. And if you don't choose to, no big deal. Nobody can do enough.
Excellent.
Second thing is the amount of data.
Let me just get it sorted out. Alright, comrades, I don't know what happened a while ago, the live freeze, but I am going to resume the conversation with Comrade Julian as soon as the numbers build back up. So just give me a few minutes. Comrade Julian is still on the line. When it looked like said them report the live and the live shut down. So I'm asking you to just reshare up the live now. Let us get the new link out because legit, I don't know. We are in the middle of such an interesting conversation, and this happened. So just bear with me. We still have Comrade Julian on, and we want to go into other things as well because we're currently talking about NIDS, which a lot of you want to hear about. So it is very important that we get the numbers back up and running. All right. So I'll resume the discussion in approximately 3 minutes just to get everybody back on and share it up back because we had so many people on and it just, somebody saying TikTok is labor, right? You know, sometimes these things happen, comrades, and we know what these people are capable of. Sometimes they mass report the live and sabotage us. It is what it is. It's already, the 21 and over is already on BRAT. That is my default setting. I've made that the default setting. But it is what it is. We just have to reshare the link. I'm asking you all to just reshare the link and let us not waste a lot of time. It's getting late. Comrade Julian has been on for almost an hour. So, and also remember that when you don't tap the screen, remember how TikTok work, when you don't tap up the screen sometime and show the little love, TikTok lock down the live because them think the live inactive. So sometimes you need to tap up the screen for me too, right? Give me some hearts and share the link. All right, so I'm asking you now to do that. We are now back to over 50 people. We want to get it back up to at least 80 so that we can continue the conversation because we were at 100 and almost 50 before. All right, this is very important. Thank you for the rule, Strongman. This is a very important conversation, comrades. We are learning why NIDS is now palatable because some of us were still dead set against NIDS, but Comrade Julian Robinson is on explaining to us that NIDS is now just like another ID, and there, I mean, the process of acquiring one is no longer as intrusive and as invasive as it was before he took the government to court about it. All right, Comrade Julian, back up and running now. Let me come out of this.
I don't know where we got cut off, but again, just to summarize the NIDS story. So the major changes were moving it from being mandatory, where if you did not sign up, it would have been a criminal offense, to now where it is voluntary. So you can choose to take a NIDS card if you want. If you don't choose to take it, there is no issue. That's the first thing. And the second one was the level of information that was required before has been significantly reduced, and it's only the same information that you would need to give if you're getting your voter's ID, which is you take a picture, your fingerprints, and you give your date of birth, your name, address. That's it. So that's the only information you would need. And so it would become now the real national ID. So yes, I would encourage people to take it now, because the issues that made it unconstitutional have been removed because the law was declared null and void and have no legal effect. They didn't even say change it, they said throw it out totally. And that's what they did. And the government had to come back with a totally new law, which they did. And in fact, when they did it, they established a joint select committee. We had an opportunity to give our input during that time, to express our concerns, which were the things we said they should have done from day one, actually, which they didn't do. So eventually they did it. So I would say to persons, the fears which people had initially of NIDS, the court case resolved those, and I don't believe there needs to be the same level of apprehension. Now, the one concern I would still have, which is not a legislative concern, is that in this era where cyber criminals are operating, it's very important that the government gets the best technical advice and direction in terms of how they store the data in this database. Because it means now that you'd have a single database with everybody's name, address, picture, fingerprint, etc., 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 and that would become very attractive for hackers. So it's very important that we are on top of our game in terms of the management of the cybersecurity around this.
And that is the concern that a lot of individuals have, Comrade Julian. The fact that we are very, very poor at protecting data in Jamaica. So how is it that they're going to protect so many people if the data of all of us, if they want this thing to be widespread?
Well, all right. Again, let's just perspective. You know, the EOJ has been managing our electoral data for a while, and to be fair, I haven't heard of any incidents where there's been hacking into the EOJ database. And we have gone through elections. There may be other issues with EOJ, but I haven't heard any of people stealing the data in that way. So it's more caution. It's something that obviously people are going to be concerned about, because hackers have access to resources. We don't necessarily have the best expertise in the world, but that is something I think the government has to pay a lot of attention to and ensure that the systems are robust enough that, you can never say you will eliminate something, but you reduce the threat significantly and you make it, difficult, if not impossible, for people to penetrate your system so they can get it.
Somebody is asking, well, I want to know as well, what about the TRN? Would we still have to have a separate TRN from NIDS?
Don't hold me to this, but I think they were trying to incorporate the TRN to be the number. So I know it's supposed to be a 9-digit number similar to the TRN,
right.
and I think it would now become one unified number versus you having to remember two separate numbers. Yeah, because there's no point it's too hard to remember two different numbers, and it's the same government that you're going to be dealing with. So I think, and again, my recollection is it would be one unique number per individual, which you would then use for all your government-related transactions.
Right. Almost like a social security system.
Similar to a social. Yeah, it's the same 9-digit type number that you now have as TRN.
All right. Thank you. All right, Comrade Julian. I normally open what we call the box and ask comrades, give the opportunity to comrades to ask you a few questions. But before I do that, so we have to talk a little bit about your constituency. We have to talk about the recent local government election and the fact that a lot of comrades here were very, very happy that a certain individual who was once a comrade was sent packing by young comrade Jesse James Clark. So, we have to talk to you a little bit more about that.
I'll tell you, that's really not a surprise. I don't want to dwell on that person. The reality is that, we felt very confident going into the election. Jesse was on the ground for a while. He's been working quietly. He's a good youth, solid youth, somebody who stays close to the people, who, manageable kind of youth person, and somebody who I know will do very well for the division. So, we always had a solid organization in the Trafalgar division, and I must tell you, the results were even larger than we expected. We won by almost 690 votes, which is the largest margin ever in the history of that division.
Let me tell you something. When I knew that he was gonna win, when I drive along Old Hope Road in front of Diabetes Association and see the whole out there so orange, that is when I know said Jesse can't lose that seat.
No, he did very well. I must tell you, I was very proud of both. As you know, Jesse won, and then Swaby became the mayor, and already as mayor, I think he's doing very well and making good steps in terms of trying to bring order to the city. And I think he's going to be a great mayor for the KCC. And I think give him a little more time. He's putting in place systems and processes and stuff that I think you're going to see a difference in the corporate area. So I would say we need to prepare ourselves. We are a year and a half out from an election, but in our system, anything can play. And my own view, I think, is going to be earlier than later. We still have some seats left to be settled at the MP level, which I know the GenSec is dealing with those. So from my perspective, we have to be ready in case something happens by the end of this year. And so I want to encourage comrades, first, make sure you are enumerated. That's the first thing I tell people all the time. Being a supporter is good, but we need the votes. And, what we saw in the local, even though it was a 2020 tie, the popular vote was with us, and that made us get the mayor. So I tell you, every vote counts, and every vote makes a difference.
Exactly.
So if you're not already enumerated, please do so, because my own view, I think the November voters list is likely to be the list that the next election is going to be called on. And encourage your friends and those who are supporters to get enumerated as well. I would tell you, in the local government, there are a lot of people who voted who don't normally vote in local government elections, but who felt they needed to come out and send a signal. These are people who said normally local government don't make no difference, but they want to send a signal. And I want to encourage those people to maintain their activism and vote whenever the general comes. So for us, I think we have to stay close to the people. I think we have to continue to share what our plans are, how we plan to importantly build an economy which will benefit all of the Jamaican people. That is the important thing. You can't have a society where only a small fraction of the people are doing well and the vast majority aren't. You have to find a way to bring more people into the economy so that they can benefit from it and they feel part of it. We have to address many of the social services. It's important to talk about your NIR, etc., but the reason people don't relate to it is they can't see the difference in their lives. They go to a bus stop and have to wait 2 hours to get a bus. They go to a hospital and have to sit down on a chair. So there are many of the ills that are facing the country. We have outlined in budget debates how we plan to address them, and we have to explain to the people that those pressing issues, we will in fact address them, right? And so whether it's 6 months to the election or another year and a half, we just have to maintain our activism and remain close to the people.
I'm glad you're giving all this advice, because a lot of people may not realize that you have been one of the most successful MPs in PNP, especially in the last election when most MPs, even if they won, the margins cut. Your margin actually increased, right?
Not increased, but in percentage terms, I held my own. But, you know, again, I think you have to put it this way: there were seats stronger than mine that lot. So you have to maintain your presence in a constituency, stay close to your people, continuously communicate, and I tell people, you know, even when you can't do things, right, you have to explain to people why you can't do it. I mean, today a lady called me about Arnold Road and said it need to patch, etc. And I say, I agree, I know it need to patch, but we have to wait till the monies that are allocated come through for us to do it. And so it is important, even when you can't meet needs, that you explain to people why you can't, because you'll never be able to meet every need. It's not possible. So, you know, it can be overwhelming, because the needs are, believe you me, there are a lot of needs. Many of them are personal, etc. And you don't necessarily have the resources to solve every one of them, but you have to try and explain to people what you can do and what you can't do. And my approach, I think people don't respect the fact that you tell them. You know,
the communication is key.
Yeah, you know, and don't give them a 6-for-9. Nobody tell them, say, yeah, you're going to do it when you know you can't do it. If you can't do it, then you explain what the limitations are.
Interesting.
You know, or how you can help within the resources that you have, you know. So we have to maintain that. As I said, I think there are 5 seats left to be filled, and so we have to fill those quickly, ensure we're doing the enumeration work, ensure we're doing the canvassing work, and ensuring that we remain close to the people on the ground.
That's true. All right, comrade, I'm going to open up the box now, as I said before, so that the people can ask you a few questions. Just begging you for another half an hour at most.
Yeah.
Listen to me, viewers, we're not going beyond a half an hour. We're not going to keep Comrade Julian on here all night like what we do with poor Comrade Chair the other night. They had her on here for hours the other night. We're not doing that tonight, comrades. All right, no problem. I'm just opening it up. All right. Okay, comrades, the box is open. Start sending in your requests to come up into the box. All right, we're seeing the requests. All right, Anne-Marie. Welcome, Comrade Anne-Marie. Big up yourself, straight out of Northern Trelawney. Go ahead, Comrade Anne-Marie.
Hi, comrades. Good night, Comrade Julian. I want to ask, what is the benefit of NIDS? Because I don't see the benefit.
What's the benefit of NIDS? What I would say the benefit is, there are a lot of Jamaicans who have no ID whatsoever. It's why, as persons in the political process, we know...
Hold on a second, Comrade Julian. Anne-Marie, mute your mic. Mute your mic while he answers. All right, go ahead now, Comrade Julian.
No, I'm saying there are a lot of Jamaicans who have no ID whatsoever. So the 3 common types of IDs, passport, driver's license, and the EOJ card. And for those of us in the political process, we know a lot of people take out the EOJ card, not because they want to vote, but because they need an ID. So, for example, you have left school, you want to get a job, you open a bank account. To open a bank account, you have to have an ID. And in fact, in many cases, they ask you for 2 IDs. And even with the 2 IDs, they ask you for a JP to sign a letter to say it's you. Yep. What the NIDS database would do now, and NIDS would do, is that your NIDS card would replace your need to have 2 different IDs and the JP to sign a letter to say you are you. And what as exists now with the EOJ system, the bank can verify. So let's say I come in there with a card that say I'm Julian Robinson, and the bank not really sure say I'm me. They can do a query to check that it is really me, and pull up, in the database my face, etc., to show that it's me. So it is important to allow people to do business, to transact business, and for banks in particular to know who they're dealing with. So that is one very clear benefit of it. And as I said, given the adjustments that have been made, what the information that NIDS asks for is the very same as your voter ID, not more.
Okay, Anne-Marie, does that answer your question? Go ahead.
It does answer my question somewhat, but it still goes on to say that most Jamaican don't trust this government. And worse, we're hearing about the Israelis are now in charge of our identity, where needs is concerned and all of that. And basically, when I talk to a lot of persons, they say they don't trust it. Nothing that they do can let them do it.
So, Comrade, you raise a different point about trust. I understand where you're coming from with that. And there are many reasons why I think a lot of people don't trust this government, because they have done a number of things that raise concern. So I understand your apprehension in that regard. Now, the issue of the Israelis, there's an Israeli company that I understand wanted to manage some parts of our electoral system. I don't have all the details, and I know there are legitimate concerns around that. But you asked me about NIDS as an ID, and as I said, from my perspective, I think there are benefits. But I do understand and appreciate the issues of trust, or the lack thereof, with this government, based on a number of things. So I get the apprehension, and I get where you're coming from that perspective.
All right, Comrade Anne-Marie.
So for one last question. So Comrade, for persons that per se have a voter ID, a driver license, a passport, and a TRN, why should I really get NIDS?
Well, if you have all of that, then you are probably okay, right? But you'll appreciate, there are, to get like a voter ID, you have to be 18 and over. NIDS has no age, so it will take people from they're under 18, for example. Not everybody has a passport. Again, you'd have to be 18 and over to get a driver's license. So you might be, let's say you're a youngster at 16 and you leave fifth form and you choose not to go to sixth form and you're going out into the working world. What ID would you have if you don't have a passport? You wouldn't have one. So it would be beneficial to that person, right? But I in your case, you already have, like me, I have passport, driver's license, EOJ, ID, and TRN already. But as I said, there are many people who don't. So that's where it would help that, let's say, that 16-year-old who is going into the working world.
Okay, so what age, Comrade, what age would you would they start NIDS within the school?
No, man, from registration. So you remember they're going to link with RGD, right? And so when you are registered at your birth from hospital or wherever, so the RGD infrastructure is incorporated into NIDS, so that they can keep a track of you all the way through. I mean, obviously they'll have to update your picture, etc., because that baby picture is different from a 5-year-old picture. But it starts from birth.
So what type of would they still be doing like the blood works and all those stuff?
No, man, that's what I said. You may have missed it. No, man, all of those things were, when I took them to court, all of those things came out. So the only things that NIDS will ask for, your picture, same way when you take your EOJ ID, your fingerprints, your name, your address, your date of birth. That's it. That's all. Nothing more. So all the things about toe print, eye thing, eye scan, all of those things were taken out during the court case. Wow. All of that is gone.
Okay, thank you, Comrade.
It's voluntary.
It's voluntary now. That is the key difference.
Not mandatory.
You don't have to get it anymore. There is no penalty
thank
for
you.
that. All right, Comrade Anne-Marie. Take care. Comrade
no, I can now speak on it.
All right, great.
Okay.
Comrade Hugh, welcome.
Good afternoon, good night, Comrade Robinson. My pet peeve is really no tax, and I have a theory. If the previous PMP government, along with the IMF, had put in all the tax measures in place to take us to where we are today, to bring the debt to whatever we have decided to bring it to by a set time. So all those taxes were in place. The only reason why we had this government had put in a tax package was to recover back from the 1.5. Am I right? Am I right?
No, you're correct. I'm saying you're correct.
So in that, all right. So in that case now, why as comrades we allow the minister to get away with this no new tax instead of we arguing about the more money collecting as tax? Why we don't argue the point of saying that the PMP government did all the hard work to set the play field? But
I said, comrades, I dealt with that in the budget debate just gone. In fact, I went back to what we inherited when we came in 2011. There was no IMF agreement. There was no agreement whatsoever, because from 2007 to 2011, the government abandoned the IMF agreement, and it took Bush and Peter Phillips to re-establish our relationships with our international partners to get back an agreement, and we had to do the heavy lifting, which meant, as you rightly said, imposing some new taxes so we could meet the very targets that were set by the IMF. And so we did the heavy lifting. In cricketing terms, they got a very good wicket to bat on.
So Robinson,
we have said it. I said it. I spent significant time in my budget debate talking about it.
Yeah, but Comrade Robinson, I understand that, but there's a lot of people in Jamaica believe in this no new. We need to point out when them coming and dancing and we need to point out to him and say, listen, me, the only reason you can stand here today boasting of no new tax is because of the hard work done by previous government. We put in all the tax measures, because all the tax that this government is benefiting from today, a government lives have got benefit of tax grants and loans. All right? So all the tax that they say they are getting, if they don't put in any new tax, where are they getting those money from?
I spent a little time earlier talking about it. So
you joined late.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but I'm speaking, Comrade Robinson, I'm speaking on behalf of majority of Jamaica who don't understand this thing, who want to hear more from the PMP to dumb them and say, listen me man, the no new tax is available and is to reality because of the hard work. Jamaica people don't know that they are rating this stupid man as the most intelligent and the best finance minister. Because 7 years no new tax. Like tax is bad. The tax that the PMP put in previous was bad. Remember, I'm carrying a long list, 17 years, long list, and all of those taxes are being collected today. We can get rid of them something there.
No, but I'm just saying, both myself and the leader, we both spoke about it in our budget presentations. And we reminded
but the people are not knowing it. The people are not seeing it. The people, I'm not talking about
the information.
So what we, one of the good things about the conference season, which starts tomorrow with the divisional conferences, we have opportunities to go around. Started today, right? To explain some of these very issues. And I'm speaking at a number of them, other leaders in the party are going. And we want to use the opportunity. That's why these conferences are important, to share our message about what we did.
Please, because I am at pain to be saying it to people, people still don't understand. Maybe coming from you, people more understand. Because even there's no new tax, and him play to the camera and Jamaica people, you listen me man, we need to dumb him with this stupidness. You can't collect what they did already. You have benefit from all that the hard work we do. All of the tax we have collect from the gas tax and this, that. We put that in.
What I would encourage you, Comrade,
wait, let him finish you. Let Comrade Robinson finish his
No, I would encourage you, as you are doing, to continue to share your messages as you talk to people in your community, because, even with our conference circuit, we're not going to reach everybody. And it's important that, we have as many voices on the ground talking about these issues. But we have some speaking notes coming out of both my presentation and the leader's presentation, and those were distilled into some bullet points. So it's not 20 odd pages or 30 odd pages. It's 3 or 4 that you can easily read and digest, and we've been circulating them. So even for those people who don't catch the visionary conferences, they can see the points that we made about the economy, etc.
That will be excellent, Comrade Julian.
That is good. That is because I know that when the conference we start put it out there and say, we put it out and make it, the taxes are there because so thank you very much.
All right, Comrade Hugh, thank you. All right, Comrade Orin Cole, your time. I think this is the last person who we're going to put up in the box because the time is going, and we want to release Comrade Julian. Comrade Cole.
I Comrade Julian.
Hi, Comrade Cole.
Yeah, man. A Stella grandson. Me talk in a Jamaican language. Life member Stella Wilkins' grandson.
Yeah, man. Me know I know who I'm talking to.
Okay. All right, Comrade Julian. My concern is a two-tier problem and probably solution. That you has done a fantastic job of what you grow and mature. But my problem is to attack the finance minister budget presentation that 2023-2024 a shortfall of 57.5 or 57.2 billion dollar shortfall.
22
how best can you relate that to the Jamaican people? What that impact will be impacting this budget, right?
Well, okay, yeah. So what I did, as soon as the data came out, which would have been, I believe, on Wednesday evening, I had a statement out on Thursday morning calling on the minister to indicate what the implications were and to indicate what programs are likely to be cut as a result of that shortfall. So I would say we've been, as soon as that information came, we were out there. I did a number of interviews and, been trying to explain, which is part of this, our discussion here, what it means. Because as I said earlier in the discussion, once you have a shortfall in revenue, you can only make it up in 2 ways: by cutting your programs or raising taxes. And I've said that this government has said they don't plan to raise taxes, so it must mean that you're going to have a cut in certain programs. Which programs they are, I don't know at this stage. But you have to balance your budget in the same way as an individual. You have to balance your income and your expenditures. The government has to do the same thing. So we have gone through that, and we have been, as an opposition, explaining the implications so that the Jamaican people understand what it means for them.
Comrade Cole, you have any follow-up?
Yeah, man. No follow. The next question: how best we as a blogger, right? You have J Program, Camilla, Cash and Jam View. How best can we help the party to push the agenda for the next 15 months? And Camilla, you ask everybody that question.
Yes, I know.
How best as a blogger? All the guests, I will continue. And Julia, know that's how Comrade Stella was, right? That we stick to when we determine how best can all of us help you to push the message out. I have no more questions, Comrade Julian. Fantastic job, and long live the spirit of Stella Wilkins.
All right. Well, what I would say, I think, what Kamala is doing now with this program is part of that, which is to have an opportunity to for leaders in the party to talk to you, for you to put your questions forward. I'm sure, Canada, you would have probably seen the speaking notes coming out of the budget debate.
Definitely.
Those are things that we can recirculate so people can see the main points that we made in the budget debate. And, having more of these, we have a long list of spokespersons. I think, it's important every week you get somebody else on and make them talk about their portfolio and the critical issues that affect their portfolio so that,
Definitely.
So you are this program is helping in that regard, and I would just encourage you to keep it up.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Well, Comrade Julian, one thing I would suggest from your end is more audiovisual, because what is happening now is that a lot of these people don't like to read anymore.
Don't read the press releases, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So especially with your portfolio, which is so important, I would love if you could put out a video even once a week. Just explaining some of the things that are happening.
Explaining some of the issues.
Yes, because once you do, once you send it out in the groups, we will get it all over. All you have to do is just do the video and post it, and we'll do the rest.
Okay, I will take that on, because you're right. We tend to do a lot of the releases. We follow up with interviews, but I think a short video of a couple of minutes would make a difference.
2 to 3 minute videos.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll definitely take that up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you much, Carla.
Yeah, man,
and
thank you. I
thanks to
really
the
appreciate your
persons
time.
who listened. And as I said, I think getting a spokesperson on each week would definitely help a lot.
Definitely. Well, you can recommend them, because sometimes they're so hard to reach.
I absolutely will. I will.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, Comrade Julian. Take care.
Take care.
All right.